and partners who champion our mission and help us carry out our important work. This morning, we're pleased to be joined by a number of the museum's Patriot Circle and charter members. Your involvement helps to advance our education outreach and makes it possible for the museum to present educational programs like the one that we're at today. So thank you for your support in joining us today. Now, I'd like to welcome the National World War II Museum's President and CEO, Mr. Stephen Watson, to the stage.
Thank you, Pete, and good morning. And thank you to all of you for being here on this really, I think, important and special day at the National World War II Museum. If you were to ask any of our staff members and volunteers, and we have many here today, they'll tell you that it is a real highlight to have even a single World War II veteran, a Holocaust survivor, someone who served on the home front, visit our museum. I think we all know that we have really precious few years left to celebrate and recognize the men and women that served and sacrificed, and most importantly, were victorious during World War II. So it's incredibly special today to have 14 World War II veterans here for this special ceremony, and you'll hear more about them later. And I think this is probably the largest group of World War II veterans we've had at our museum in the last 3.5 years. So thank you, gentlemen. I know many of you, this is the first time you visited, and you're eager to get through the museum to see if we've done a good job or not. So hopefully we'll get the thumbs up afterwards, but it again is a privilege to have you all here on our campus. And just a moment, you're going to hear much more about the important role of the U.S. Merchant Marine and the role that they played in securing our victory in World War II. I think, simply put, your job and the effectiveness of that cannot be overstated. And just a couple of quotes that I found that I think really drive that home. In 1944, our President, Franklin D. Roosevelt, said of the mariners, "They have delivered the goods when and where needed, in every theater of operations and across every ocean, in the biggest, the most difficult, and the most dangerous transportation job ever undertaken." So just think about that. The biggest, the most difficult, and the most dangerous transportation job ever undertaken. That's no small praise right there. And also in 1945, General Douglas MacArthur said he held no branch in higher esteem than the Merchant Marine for the critical role in the liberation of the Philippines. So we're here today to celebrate your service, your sacrifice, the important role that you played in securing our victory. And of course, in a few minutes, we're going to celebrate some of those individuals whose service inspired that praise. And I hope that all of you here today, if you have not already, will take a minute to visit our Merchant Marine exhibit. We're very proud of it. It, of course, honors the merchant mariners who risked their lives transporting men, weapons, and supplies to U.S. troops in all theaters of operations. It's on the second floor of the Solomon Victory Theater, right above where, if you've seen Beyond All Boundaries, that's where our Merchant Marine exhibit is housed. And this incredible exhibit was made possible by an incredible man, a World War II merchant mariner, and former museum trustee, someone who I had the privilege to get to know over many years, Ralph Crump, who passed away just a few years ago. Ralph served in the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the Mediterranean theaters. And he wanted to make sure, as you might imagine, that the important role of the Merchant Marine was told here at America's National World War II Museum. So that exhibit every day continues to serve as a lasting tribute to your wartime service, gentlemen, and millions of visitors have seen that already, and millions more will for years to come. So congratulations on today's well-deserved recognition of the Congressional Gold Medal, and really thank you for allowing us here at the National World War II Museum to be a part of this incredible recognition. I'd now like to welcome to the stage Kevin Tokarski, who is the Associate Administrator for the Strategic Sealift Maritime Administration in the U.S. Department of Transportation. And he's going to share more about the accomplishments of the U.S. Merchant Marine. Thank you.
Good morning. Well, it's an honor to be here today to celebrate the awarding of the Congressional Gold Medal for Merchant Marine veterans of World War II. My thanks to President Stephen Watson of the National World War II Museum for the invitation, and thank you to Captain Drew DiMattia and Sheila Sova of the American Merchant Marine Veterans Organization, who have been strong, steady beacons supporting the efforts to get this recognition. I also thank the Gary Sinise Foundation for their support that enabled our veterans to be here. It's my honor to be with these distinguished 14 gentlemen who are American Merchant Marine veterans, whose steadfast and loyal service to the nation we are recognizing following the passage of the Congressional Act in 2020 and creation of this wonderful medal. As the Associate Administrator for Strategic Sealift at the Maritime Administration, it's my privilege to bring greetings from U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg and Maritime Administrator Admiral Ann Phillips. Most of us are very familiar of the legacy of the armed forces in World War II, but too few know about the legacy and service and patriotism of merchant mariners, an equally proud legacy that predates the founding of our nation and continues in this day as mariners serve a critical role supporting America's national security, economic prosperity, and right now, bringing disaster aid to Puerto Rico and Florida. The U.S. Merchant Marine has served this nation in peace and war since 1775. Throughout our nation's history, our armed forces have relied on the Merchant Marine to enable the projection of power overseas and to resupply our forces for sustained combat operations. Provide a strategic advantage for our warfighters, capability that can deliver decisive force at the time and place of our choice, anywhere on the globe, even landlocked countries like Afghanistan. And while sailing through contested waters, never was this more evident and costly than during the Second World War. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt referred to the U.S. Merchant Marine as the fourth arm of defense. And General of the Army Dwight D. Eisenhower captured the importance of their service when he said, "Every man in this Allied command is quick to express his admiration for the loyalty, courage, and fortitude of the officers and men of the Merchant Marine. We count upon their efficiency and their utter devotion to duty as we do our own. They have never failed us yet, and in all the struggles yet to come, we know that they will never be deterred by any danger, hardship, or privation. When final victory is ours, there will be no organization that will share its credit more deservedly than the Merchant Marine." In 1946, the Warshipping Administrator, Rear Admiral Emory S. Land, spelled out in precise detail for the President the contribution of the American Merchant Mariners during World War II. Land wrote that just as our American Merchant Marine linked American overseas forces with American production, so it aided in cementing the United Nations into one fighting unit, not separated but joined by the oceans. He also described the true cost, the human cost of that Herculean effort. A total of 5,638 merchant seamen and officers were lost at sea, and 581 were made prisoners of war. Throughout the first part of 1943, casualties among the seagoing force were greater proportionally than in all the armed services combined. Unreported thousands of our seamen and officers were injured, under attack, or suffered the nightmare of waiting aboard lifeboats and rafts for rescue. So during World War II, more than 240,000 merchant mariners stepped forward to transport tens of millions of tons of war supplies under the most challenging circumstances imaginable. From the frigid Murmansk run to the North Atlantic, through the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, and throughout the Pacific, merchant mariners suffered the highest per capita casualty rate in the armed forces during World War II, with 1 mariner out of every 26 lost. I had the honor in 2014 of visiting the Sicily-Rome American Cemetery to lay a wreath for U.S. merchant mariners who died in World War II. I visited the graves of able seaman Alan C. Collins of Connecticut and third mate James A. Landwehrmeyer from Texas. And James had told his daughters he was going to sea for just one more trip and expected to be home in a few weeks. He never returned. It was his final voyage as he gave his life in service to the nation, delivering cargo for the invasion in Italy. And that's where he lies today. There are countless stories of sacrifice and heroism. They did so much from a sense of honor and commitment and simple patriotism to our great nation. But as veteran Dave Yoho also has passionately explained, some were too young to know the dangers and the risks they faced. They were just kids. This fortitude is captured in our service song. Give us the goods and we'll deliver. Damn the submarines. We're America's merchant marine. And the merchant mariners for World War II did not get veteran status until 1987. That's right, 1987 when they were recognized 40 years after the war. The mariners from World War II, considered the most distinguished recognition it bestows. The Congressional Gold Medal, long sponsored by Congressman John Garamendi from California and other members, was passed in 2020. And I was in Statutory Hall on May 18th of this year as Speaker Nancy Pelosi hosted 10 Merchant Marine veterans of World War II for that public unveiling of this medal. This design perfectly recognizes the sacrifice, perseverance, and bravery of these mariners and their critical role in the war effort. Replicas of the medal are provided by my office to veterans, while a smaller medal is provided for the next of kin. The American Merchant Marine Veteran Organization has been a tremendous help in locating these veterans for us. And we remember the nearly 6,000 mariners who were lost and another 1,000 who were wounded on more than 1,500 U.S. flagged ships during World War II. This also includes 142 midshipmen from the United States Merchant Marine Academy who died while sailing as cadets, the only Federal Service Academy to lose cadets in the war, and that's why it's the only service academy that carries a battle standard. And that is why the actual gold medal is at the American Merchant Marine Museum at Kings Point, New York. Most have passed, but we are so fortunate to have veterans with us today who can share their memories and inspire us with their courage and service. We're blessed by the democracy they preserved, and we're honored to be with you as a Congressional Gold Medal is presented to commemorate all that you and so many did for our nation. I thank you, and may God continue to bless this great nation.
Thank you, Mr. Tokarski, for joining us today and providing your thoughts. The Congressional Gold Medal, which is the highest honor bestowed by the United States Congress, honors those whose dedication, heroism, and public service have created a lasting impact on American history. On March 14th, 2020, legislation was signed into law authorizing the Congressional Gold Medal for American merchant mariners whose honorable service played a critical role in the war effort during World War II. The United States Mint, in consultation with maritime partners, designed the Congressional Gold Medal in honor of World War II merchant mariner veterans. The original medal was presented on May 18th by the Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives and other congressional leaders in a ceremony in the U.S. Capitol's Statuary Hall. As we just heard, it's currently on display at the American Merchant Marine Museum in Kings Point, New York. Because of the pandemic, many of the merchant mariners of World War II were unable to participate in the official ceremony. So the museum is honored to provide the setting due to this remarkable group of 14 veterans today. Of course, the honor that we are here to celebrate today is shared by many other merchant mariners who cannot be with us. Before we continue our program, I'd like to recognize just two in particular that we had hoped would be with us today. Dr. Billie Adels Pennings would not say no for an answer when she was told that women could not serve on ships in the war. So she began sailing on Norwegian flagged ships with the U.S. Merchant Marine, and was one of the first female radio operators on a shipping vessel. Her many ports of call included Guadalcanal, Okinawa, and Bremen, Germany. I invite you to join me in a moment of silence as we mourn Dr. Billie's recent passing and honor her legacy today. Thank you. I also want to recognize James Seipel, who trained in St. Petersburg, Florida in 1943. He first worked on a freighter before serving on LST vessels. He was engaged in active landings and conflict throughout the war. Unfortunately, Mr. Seipel lives in Florida and his home was impacted by Hurricane Ian this week, so he's not able to travel to the museum as planned. So let's please keep Mr. Seipel in our thoughts during this difficult time as we also honor his service. Now, I'd like to introduce Kenneth Korn, the Vice President of the Board of Directors for the Veteran History Museum of the Carolinas in Brevard, North Carolina. He's joined us today to introduce our honorees. So please join me in welcoming Ken to the stage.
All right, such a great honor to be here with all our American heroes right here. Let's give them a round of applause before we even start. Yeah, good job.